Welcome everyone to today's webinar on the Global Talent Visa and how to make your EOI stand out. My name is Yin Chiew. I'm the practice leader in the corporate immigration team. I'm joined today by my colleague, Kaku Caro, who's also a lawyer in the corporate immigration team as well. We'd like to start with acknowledgement of country. LegalVision acknowledges and pays respect to the past, present, and emerging traditional custodians of the elders of this nation, in particular the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, whose land LegalVision's headquarters is situated on, and the various lands on which those of you are joining us today. So before we begin the webinar, just a reminder that you will be emailed a copy of this webinar recording. Feel free to submit your questions in the chat box and we will attend to them towards the end of this webinar. And we would really appreciate it if you could complete a survey and provide your feedback. So today we're going to cover just a brief introduction to the Global Talent Visa, and then we're going to talk about the Global Talent Visa application process, the eligibility criteria, a brief overview of the target sectors, but most importantly, how to make your expression of interest stand out and attract an invitation from the Global Talent team. And we've got some tips and tricks that we'd like to share with you, and we will do a question and answer towards the end of the webinar. So I just want to give you a brief introduction of the Global Talent Visa. It was introduced in 2019, around mid of that year, and previously it was known as the Distinguished Talent Visa. And it is designed to attract highly qualified, experienced, and exceptionally talented individuals that are internationally recognized. There are a number of target sectors, and we will go through them in this webinar as well, but they range from across health, technology, science, and the financial services sector. So in 2019, it was introduced as a pilot program with a general intake of 5,000. And then in the following years, 2020 and 2021, it was tripled to 15,000. We anticipate, and it has been announced as an intention in the federal budget, that the places will be reduced to just under 9,000 now. Having said that, it's not always a cause for concern because the last year's intake, only 9,000 invitations were issued, and hence 9,000 applications were approved and granted. So we're sort of seeing that even though it's a fairly competitive process, it is consistent with the intake that took place the year before. I just wanted to discuss what are the benefits of the Global Talent Visa over other migration pathways to Australia. There are employer-sponsored visas, there's skilled migration, but if you're an applicant that's eligible for the Global Talent Visa and is lucky enough to receive an invitation, some of the key benefits are that it doesn't require you to obtain a skills assessment. It is not determinative of you having skills in a particular occupation. You do not need to meet a points threshold. You do not require state or territory nomination or employer sponsorship, and you only need to demonstrate functional English. Now, it's also available to applicants that are under 18 and over 55, provided that they can demonstrate exceptional benefit to Australia. The process, the Global Talent Visa, is also open to recent PhD graduates that have specialisation and international recognition in one of the key target sectors. It's important to also note that if applicants cannot establish functional English, then they can simply pay an additional government fee.
Now, talking about the actual application process and what it entails, it is primarily 2 steps. The first step, you must prepare and submit an expression of interest to the global talent team, and hopefully you receive an invitation to apply, which will then, you will be able to move on to the second step, which is preparing and submitting the actual global talent visa application, which is the subclass 858. Now, it is important to understand this process because this is an invitation-only visa. This is why we, with our clients, and we also recommend everyone out there to focus and prepare the best expression of interest possible in order to attract the attention and hopefully receive such an invitation. This is why we also recommend that at the expression of interest stage, you do already secure a nominator and complete the Form 1000, even though it is not an official requirement of the expression of interest stage. It is highly recommended. Now, this process can occur both onshore or offshore. So you can submit the expression of interest, and if you do receive the invitation, apply for the visa, regardless of your location. But most importantly, regardless if you do hold either a substantive visa or a bridging visa. Now, moving on to the next line where we talk about the processing times. We have to consider these 2 stages quite carefully. There is a bit of a difference, okay? At the expression of interest stage, the processing times can vary, and it is largely dependent on how well you have prepared the expression of interest, how much evidence and documentation you have provided to attest to all of your claims in the key target sector, your international achievement, recognition, prominence in the field. It can really range between anywhere to a few days, a few weeks, a few months, but important to note that we have seen in the past applicants that have contacted us who have prepared their own expression of interest. For example, they have only provided their curriculum, their resume, and the academic transcripts. With that limited amount of documentation, they have not received an invitation, and highly likely they will never receive such an invitation. That documentation alone is not sufficient at this stage. Let's remember, we want to prepare the best expression of interest possible to attract the attention in order to receive such an invitation. Now, for the Global Talent Visa, once we do receive that invitation, which is great news, the process is rather straightforward and smooth. It can take anywhere between 1 to 2 months for the actual visa application to be finalized by the Department of Home Affairs. Now, delays can occur if there are delays for the health examinations, for example, if you're struggling in preparing some sort of documentation from third parties, such as police certificates, translations. But as long as you have prepared the application with ample documentation and evidence, and you're not sent a request for further information by the Department of Home Affairs to clarify some of the claims that you have put through in the application, it is quite a fast process, in particular considering that this is a permanent residency application, okay? So from the very beginning to the very end, from the expression of interest, invitation, global talent visa, and hopefully visa grant, we are talking about permanent residency. So this is quite a quick turnaround considering when we compare all of the other visa applications out there. Now, when we talk about the visa application costs, just rather quickly, the primary applicant, the government fees are $4,305. For your spouse, de facto partner, or dependents over 18, we're looking at $2,155 in government fees, and for any dependents under 18, $1,080. We have to mention that The English requirement is simply functional English, which is rather low level. However, any applicants that do not meet that requirement, you can pay a second visa application charge of $4,890 in lieu of that meeting that English requirement and criteria. Now, there are also other, there may be other costs such as health examination, police checks, document translations, as we have just mentioned before. But also important to note that at the expression of interest stage, there are no government fees. It's just a simple expression of interest. Now, my colleague Yin will talk about the eligibility criteria in greater detail.
Thanks, Kaku. This is a very important step to really understand if you're eligible for the Global Talent Visa, if you can establish all the requirements at the expression of interest stage. The key requirement being that the applicant, yourself, will need to establish that they're internationally recognised and have a record of exceptional and outstanding achievements in one of the target sectors. You need to also establish that you're prominent in your field of expertise, that you're still currently prominent as well, and that your prominence hasn't expired, you could say. You need to also demonstrate that you would be an asset to the Australian community, how your skills, how your achievements will benefit the economy, could benefit the wider community as well. Now, the next point is a two-phase process, meaning that you would need to establish that you can either obtain employment in Australia or that you would have no difficulties becoming independently established in your field of expertise. You will also need nomination by an Australian nominator, and that can be an Australian citizen, permanent resident, an eligible New Zealand citizen, or an Australian organisation. Now, the Global Talent team do want you to demonstrate that you can either that you currently earn an income equivalent to the Fair Work High Income threshold, which is currently at $162,000, or you have the capacity to potentially earn that income at a future date. So as explained, an Australian nominator can be either of those individuals or organisation, but they must also be internationally recognised in the same target sector, in the same field of expertise as you. They need to be willing to attest to your international recognition and achievement. That is usually by completing a Form 1000 in great detail and providing additional support letters and potentially showing evidence of their own international recognition and achievement as well. A very common question that we're asked is, does the Australian nominator have any specific legal obligations to the Department of Home Affairs? And the short answer to that question is no, they don't. They just need to be willing to truthfully, accurately and genuinely attest to your international recognition and achievement. They do not have any specific obligations that are akin to being an employer sponsor, so they have no sponsorship obligations. So we will briefly discuss the target sectors. And there are now 10 target sectors. The target sectors were expanded in December 2020 from 7 target sectors to 10 target sectors. And they range from agri-food and ag-tech, financial services, health, digital, defense, energy, resources, education, infrastructure, tourism, and circular economy. Some of the newer target sectors are infrastructure and tourism, circular economy, and education. What is very important to note here is that it is not enough for an applicant to simply be working in these industries, but what the Global Talent team are looking for are applicants that are innovating these specific industries through their particular achievements, through their skills, and through their expertise.
Great. So now let's talk about how to actually make your expression of interest stand out above all others, attract the attention of the global talent team with the hopes of receiving an invitation to apply. The first step is we do really need to go back to that eligibility criteria. Let's ensure that you do meet that eligibility criteria at the expression of interest stage. If you do not, you can always continue building upon your profile, making sure that you are attending conferences, receiving awards, being recognized, being a prominent figure, to then hopefully submit an expression of interest once you're ready and meet that eligibility criteria. We have seen, as mentioned before, several applicants that have prepared a very basic expression of interest with very limited documentation. When we assist our clients, we actually spend a considerable amount of time making sure that we cover each and every one of these eligibility criteria, gathering substantial information and ample evidence. We want to prepare the best expression of interest possible, making sure that we cover all bases at this initial stage so that once we do receive that invitation to apply, the rest of the process, as we have mentioned, it's quite smooth and straightforward. In our experience and in our view, this is the most important part of the application process for this particular visa. Now, moving on to the next slide, we actually do recommend preparing a written letter as part of your expression of interest. You will want to submit this letter as well to the Global Talent Independent Program team with the hopes and aims to explain in detail how you meet that eligibility criteria. So spend a considerable amount of time talking about your international recognition, how you're prominent in the field, why you would be an asset to Australia and the Australian economy, what benefits do you bring to the table, and how you will have no difficulty in obtaining employment within your field, making sure that you meet that high income threshold of 162,000 Australian dollars, or how you will meet that high threshold by becoming independently established. Here is a tip: the Global Talent team loves entrepreneurs. So if you can show how you will become an entrepreneur, create your own business, provide employment, help the Australian economy within, obviously, this key target sector, then that is also a great benefit. It's not an issue if you are an employee or a business owner / entrepreneur. With this expression of interest letter, if we move on to the next slide, we have some examples of what are the things that we would like to see, or how we assist our clients in preparing such an expression of interest letter. Now, for example, expertise in the target sector. What is your professional experience? So we would want to see a list of all your executive, CFO, CTO, COO, high executive level positions within your field. Now, as my colleague Yin has mentioned, professional experience just by working in a key target sector is not enough. This is why we do want to see a list of international recognition and achievements. You would want to list your speaking engagements, your media presence, any awards. And when we mention awards, we do want to see independent awards that are not necessarily linked to the business and to your necessarily internal awards, such as awards from third parties. We will also want to see a list of board member positions, committees within the industries that you are currently performing. Published research articles, publications, always great to list as well. Actual or potential income. For the actual or potential income, we also just want to explain how you meet that threshold. Do you have pay slips? Do you have contracts? Also listed within your prominence in the field, we will want to see provide support letters, again from prominent figures. Similar to the Australian nominator, these supporters will want to attest to your international recognition and achievements, but also stating how they themselves are prominent within their own fields. This is all to help boost your profile, attest to your recognitions and claims, and also very similar to the Australian nominator, that the second point. Describe your nominator's professional profile. Very important. It's crucial to understand that the Australian nominator themselves need to be prominent in the key target sector so that they themselves or organization can attest to your abilities. And lastly, benefit to the Australian economy. Just simply describe the benefits that will provide to the economy within your own field. Very important. Now my colleague Yin will describe about tips on how to contact the global talent team to hopefully secure an invitation to apply.
Thanks, Kaku. Yes, we can't emphasize enough how important it is to prepare a robust expression of interest. It's a very competitive process. And what you're doing in preparing that expression of interest is to attract the attention of a global talent officer who may be able to prioritize and lend their endorsement to your expression of interest. And if that's the case, they'll be able to fast track your expression of interest, issue you an invitation very quickly, and allow you to apply for the subsequent visa application. So some of the tips and tricks, not only on top of preparing a very thorough expression of interest, addressing all the eligibility criteria, is sending or contacting the global talent team once you're ready to submit the expression of interest and giving them a summary, a very high level summary of your international recognition and achievements and your expertise in the relevant target sector. And then hopefully from that contact be able to speak to them directly to explain a bit more about your profile and to be also get that initial endorsement either in writing or through a formal oral communication with them that they will endorse you. Now, that process is not a formal interview at all. The global talent team pretty much conduct any phone calls or any sort of communications with potential applicants quite informally. And if they are of the view that you are a suitable candidate, then they will be willing to express quite immediately that they will endorse you and fast track your expression of interest. So we have done that for all our clients, and every single one of them have received an invitation within a matter of days, which is a fantastic result for the applicant, but also allows them a lot more surety that when they proceed to the next stage, which is the preparation of the visa application, that their application is also going to be expedited as well. So what we want to do, what we also want to note is that typically we can't guarantee that you will secure a meeting with a global talent team, but what we do at the outset of any potential client that we work with is that we conduct a very thorough eligibility assessment to ensure that they do actually meet all the criteria, that their profile is innovative, strong enough. And from that outset, we also assist them to prepare the summarized email to the global talent team as well. So it's quite important to note that when you're attracting the global talent team, that there may be some assistance that is required in terms of how to present your profile. So as we've already discussed, preparing an expression of interest, if some of you are familiar with the online form, appears to be deceptively simple. And it's not that simple, and it actually requires you to prepare quite a lot of documentation. So when we're engaged by specific clients to prepare the expression of interest, we often prepare the letters of support, the expression of interest letter, and any other documentation and submissions from scratch. And the reason for that is we tailor our approach to that specific client and their profile, and we highlight those particular achievements that would allow them or will put them in a favorable light with the global talent team. Another note to make as well is that is when an Australian nominator is required. Although we recommend that you obtain an Australian nominator at the time of submitting an expression of interest. It's not actually a legislative requirement, but we do recommend that. Having said that, if your Australian nominator changes from the time you receive an invitation after lodging an expression of interest to then submitting the actual visa application, that is also permitted as well. But in that stage, a new Form 1000 would need to be prepared for that new Australian nominator. If we can move on to the next slide, thanks so much. So what we want to emphasize again is that it's very important to prepare an expression of interest and that LegalVision can assist you as well. So as part of this webinar, you're welcome to download our Australian Business Innovation and Investor Visa Guide by accessing the handout section in the webinar panel. So that guide actually discusses a range of business innovation and investor visas in quite a bit of detail. Our next webinar is on Commercial Leasing 101, Understanding the Heads of Agreement, and that will take place on the 29th of September at 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, and you can register your interest at the link there. So this concludes the main part of our webinar. And you, as we explained, there's a free publication for you to download. And before we actually move on to the question and answer portion of the webinar, we'd just like to inform you of LegalVision's membership and how you can get access to over 100 in-house lawyers to help you sort out your legal issues quickly. So you can have access, you and your business can have access to unlimited advice consultations across all our practice areas, including corporate immigration. You will be able to access unlimited document drafting and reviews. You can guarantee a quick turnaround, all at affordable monthly costs. So there is cost certainty for your business and for your legal needs as well. So members can book in an unlimited legal advice consultation and get all their legal needs sorted as well. And as an attendee of this webinar, we're offering a complimentary consultation for any applicants that are interested in discussing their eligibility for the Global Talent Visa. So to book in that complimentary consultation, leave your contact details in the survey and indicate that you want to receive a complimentary consultation, and we'll get back to you very quickly as well. So let's deal with some of the questions, and I am going to pull up some of them. One question we received, and bear with me, I'm just going to have a look at the question. The question is, how does LegalVision help people prepare a global talent visa? And as discussed in the webinar, the first step is we offer a complimentary consultation to assess your eligibility for the Global Talent Visa, to assess what your international recognition and achievements are, to assess how to present your profile in the best light possible. We offer a tailored process, a tailored solution to preparing an expression of interest. So no applicant is the same. Their recognition and their international achievements differ because they may have expertise in different target sectors, and their achievements may vary from person to person. So we devise a very tailored approach as to how we would prepare the expression of interest. And then we would actually prepare all the letters of support and all the documentation from scratch as well. Kaku, did you want to deal with the next question?
Well, certainly. So the next question says, please advise on skilled migration visas. In my case, with scientific, financial background, tertiary degrees such as master's, M&A, and intention to invest in an Australian startup in the medical artificial intelligence field with certain global expansion plans. So this is quite a broad question. It could really encompass a plethora of different visa options. So What we suggest is if this individual is interested in the Global Talent Visa, to contact us so that we can have a complimentary chat, assess your eligibility, and consider if now is a great time to move forward with the expression of interest stage. If this particular individual or similar other viewers are interested in obtaining an assessment of all the visa options, the very first step is to contact us. We can discuss how we can assist you and ascertain if an initial consultation will be the best way moving forward. Nevertheless, having said that, this particular profile seems to be relevant. It could be either with health target sectors or with digitech, which is also an interesting point. So if we do find that your profile is best suited to a particular target sector, it would be a great idea to focus and narrow the sub areas of that target sector. For example, digitech. If you do have ample experience in artificial intelligence, we should mention that across the entire application, expression of interest, written letter, and explaining how that artificial intelligence experience relates to your awards, achievements, and future entrepreneurial plans. And that is a recommendation that we highly suggest if you would like to continue exploring to the Global Talent Visa. We do have another question that states, what are the skilled migrant visas pros and cons? How can we secure a skilled migrant visa for overseas graduates? Similar to the previous questions, could potentially be many visa options available to you. Immigration is quite a intricate area. We do have to assess everyone on a case-by-case basis. Having a deep understanding of your professional experience, work experience, education, occupation, and eligible occupations for skilled visas. But yeah, first step is contact us. If you're interested in the Global Talent Visa, we can have a complimentary chat to assess your eligibility. And if you're interested in other visa options, we can discuss those as well and see how we may be able to assist you via an initial consultation.
Thanks so much, Kaku. We have another question. We have reached out to the Global Talent team through email before submitting our EOI, and the response we received back said they cannot pre-approve any applicants. What is the reason for this? Well, part of that is correct. They can't pre-approve any applicants, but what they can do is say that they will actually endorse you. They can say that on the expression of interest form to include their name, so they can then select your expression of interest and then fast track it. So part of that is correct, and the other part might be that that particular applicant's profile may not have been strong enough for the Global Talent team to speak to them directly. Now, part of the tip around contacting the Global Talent team is really for the applicant to contact them directly and not their representative. So we will advise our clients to contact the Global Talent team directly if we have already conducted an initial consultation with them, are very confident of their eligibility and their prospects of success, and they have formally engaged us to prepare the expression of interest and subsequent visa application. In that process, we prepare the summarized email for them, the applicant, to send and contact the Global Talent team directly, and they will speak to them directly as well. So we as representatives, we don't contact the Global Talent team to get that initial endorsement or pre-approval because they can't give us that pre-approval, but they can explain to the applicant that they will support the expedition of their expression of interest, and that is usually done when they are the applicant contacts them directly. I hope that helps. So I believe that's all the questions that we have. So just a reminder to please complete the survey and provide us your feedback. Don't forget that there is a publication that you can download. And if you have any questions about LegalVision's membership, please let us know as well. And just a reminder that we also offer complimentary consultations to assess your eligibility for the Global Talent Visa, which we're extremely passionate about as well. So thank you everyone for your time, and we hope you enjoyed the webinar. Have a fantastic day.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.